darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you.
To talk about build mansions and drive fanciest car and 10-carat diamonds in every finger and all these things that drives them even more crazy. Now, as long as the goyim has plenty of money, they can take mortgage with 4%, they can live like they're rich. The problem begins when the interest rate goes up and they cannot pay the bills and they lose their homes, and they hear that by Jews, business as usual.
In the sound of silence.
Anywhere in the world, and we'll get this one finished. And we're with the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. You know, it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed. One of the reasons I wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses, wanted to figure out why.
Yeah. So we're taking a look, and
By the flash of a neon
it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2. This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added entire capital. Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it's been years. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work. So,
it's not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them. But we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use. But no, we don't expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off every once in a while when we're not under too much danger. So, any questions?
Mr. President, does the issue give you any? As a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him. I'd fire him. Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him.
Do you think, Mr. President, do you think Powell to do that?
Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished. And in many ways, it's too bad it started. But it did start. And it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time because it looks like it's got a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So,
Mr. President, are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. Other than that, what can I tell you? Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. Other than that, what can I tell you?
Narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp, I turn my collar to the cold and damp.
To talk about build mansions and drive fanciest car and 10-carat diamonds in every finger and all these things that drives them even more crazy. Now, as long as the goyim has plenty of money, they can take mortgage with 4%, they can live like they're rich. No problem begins when the interest rate goes up and then they cannot pay the bills and they lose their homes, and they hear that by Jews, business as usual.
If you look at the 3 or 4 main categories that adjudicate the health or the malady of an economy,
economy, they're pretty good. GDP came in at 3.0. That was not predicted to be that high. So inflation is still tolerable. So you have a good GDP, you have a good jobs report. Of course, we expect the left to discount it. Chuck Schumer said that these figures are all bogus, even though they're from non-administration sources, government bureaucracies. Bottom line, things are going very well. All of the experts were wrong, and yet the experts do not admit they were wrong. They say we were wrong privately, but we're going to be proved right because either we hope or we expect the economy to do poorly. Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. I'd like to talk about the economy here at the beginning of August. We've just finished July. We have some of the July reports, but mostly they're still from June. If you look at the 3 or 4 main categories that adjudicate the health or the malady of an economy, they're pretty good. GDP came in at 3.0. That was not predicted to be that high. The inflation rate may have just come out for July, and there's different reports, but it's about 2.7. It was 2.6 in May. January was 3.0. For the year, it's about 2.4. So inflation is still tolerable. It's not growing, an annualized rate at 2.4. So you have a good GDP, you have a good inflation rate, you have a good jobs report. We're about 4.1 unemployment. In the month of June, we picked up 150,000 new jobs. That wasn't predicted. As far as money coming into the Treasury and going out, we had a historical May. We'll wait and see what June and July are like, but we actually had more money coming into the Treasury than the government spent. Now, that was conditioned. But my point is, I want to gauge the reaction to this good news. Of course, we expect the left to discount it. Chuck Schumer said that these figures are all bogus, even though they're from non-administration sources, government bureaucracies. We had a member of Congress come on and say that Donald Trump fudged them. On the GDP, we had the Wall Street Journal say, well, that's just because momentarily, because GDP is measured also by imports and exports, and we had fewer imports and more exports. But isn't that good? But they said that was an aberration. So we've had people attack this. Most of the people said, well, as far as more money coming in and going out, that's only because of May. It will never be true again. Well, we've had Mays in 2024, 23, all the way back to 2017, the first year of the Trump administration. This was the only one in which we had more money coming in, a surplus. Then we get to the question of Jerome Powell. He's the head of the Fed. Usually the Fed cuts rates when they're worried about political and economic instability, and that means basically a recession. Now remember that the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, and our main media organs all told us in May when Donald Trump was talking about art of the deal tariffs. I'm going to announce a high tariff, then negotiate down to 10 or 15%, which is precisely what he did. But nevertheless, they said at this time, at the beginning of August, they said midsummer, we were going to have high inflation or stagflation, bad job growth, static GDP, and a trade war, along with a Wall Street collapse. Basically, a recession. Well, Wall Street stock prices are at historical highs. Every one of those predictions was wrong. So if they were wrong and the economy is not booming but strong, why would Jerome Powell keep interest rates at that 4.5 Fed rate that translates into almost over 6 and near 7% 30-year mortgages? After all, the Fed is supposed to lower rates when we have recession. So he was, with all this recessionary talk, he thought that he would lower rates. Now he says he's looking at the economy and he's not lowering rates because he doesn't yet see a recession, but he's been told that he was worried about the economy. If he's worried about a trade war and tariffs and soft job growth, which was predicted but didn't happen, why don't you lower interest rates? And the fact is that if you look at the interest rates that he did cut right before the 2024 election and his all over the map attitude toward interest rates today, there is no logic, because if he's worried that the economy inflation it's gone up 1/10 of a point and it's steaming, then he's going to keep interest rates that high. So now he's rejected the earlier prognosis that we were in a recession. It makes no sense. Why is this important? Why is this important when the Washington Post says that the numbers are rigged, or we're really not as strong as we think we are with GDP, or Jerome Powell can't be consistent and adjudicate rates going up or down based on recession or boom? We're paying $3 billion a day in interest. A day. Our defense budget costs less, that $1 trillion defense budget, than the interest payments per year. Donald Trump is trying to cut taxes and deregulate and grow the economy without increasing the deficit he inherited at about $2 trillion, $1.92 trillion. He thinks that eventually an expanded economy will bring in new revenues or supply side economics, but in the short time, he does not want to grow that deficit by giving tax cuts. And so what is he doing? He thinks the tariffs will bring in, without hurting GDP here or abroad, about $1/3 trillion. He thinks if he can decrease the interest rate by a point or point and a half, he might get another $1/3 trillion, maybe cut the interest cost by $1 billion a day down to $2 billion from $3 billion. And presto, you're already at $2/3 trillion of a $2 trillion dollar. So you're about 1/3 of the way to cut the deficit. That's pretty good when you had tax cuts. That won't happen if the interest rates stay high and the economy stays solid and doesn't give you any reason or worry over an inflationary spiral, which it hasn't so far. Bottom line, things are going very well. All of the experts were wrong, and yet the experts do not admit they were wrong. They say we were wrong privately, but we're going to be proved right because either we hope or we expect the economy to do poorly. My guess is even if the economy cools down and does poorly, Jerome Powell will not cut interest rates. He has a personal stake in this. He feels aggrieved. He feels he has to be vindicated, and he's stubborn, and he will not show the same flexibility he did during the campaign year 2024. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal.
Hello. Larry, Jay Powell's going to understand what you're talking about when he loses his job.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming.
So you mean loses me instead of easing out May, losing it before May?
However you define it, okay.
Right.
I mean, Reagan always said you're in a recession when your neighbor loses his job, and I think Jay Powell should think more seriously.
And you're in depression when you lose yours.
I don't think it's. I mean, I think the economy on the whole is pretty good. Okay,
Right.
I don't want to badmouth it. Business is very good, and everybody I talk to, deals and mergers and acquisitions and data centers and business equipment and 100% expensing and new factories are coming. All that's really good. Housing's terrible, as we were talking about before the break, during the break. Housing's terrible. Consumers are somewhere in between. But look, the inflation rate, okay, I heard your inflation numbers, but the deflator was basically 2.1% in the second quarter. I mean, that's a very good number. Sure. And that's a number, it's much lower than it was last fall when they had the jumbo rate cut before the election.
And that brings up, listen, I last year, a lot of guests came on and said this was a politically motivated rate cut. I pushed back on that back then. It's hard to push back on it right now in hindsight because all of a sudden there are new rules out there. But I'm going to go back to housing. 35 and under, the largest asset is your home. And it feels like the American dream has been based off, hey, let's get a home, let's have household formation. That's the engine. You have children, they go to school. That's what drives us, right? You need kids. We got a fertility crisis right now. And that's missing, Larry, and I'm really concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you own a home, you're doing well because prices are high and it's a form of wealth. The trick is getting into a home. That's the trick. And there are zoning issues and regulatory issues that are not unimportant, but interest rates and mortgage rates are very important in this game. As if you had a mortgage rate that was 2.5% to 3.5%, you don't feel like selling because you're going to have to swap into something that'll give you a much higher mortgage rate. There are a lot of impediments to it. Not everyone agrees with me, but I kind of like Trump's idea of just waiving the capital gains tax altogether on housing. Because then I was thinking, if you did it for housing, then the next thing you might want to do is for stocks. And in fact, you might want to get rid of the capital gains tax altogether, or at the very least, index it for inflation. Taxes can help here. That's what I'm saying. Now, one big beautiful bill hasn't really kicked in yet. It's just passed.
Sure.
So that's coming down the road.
And more deregulation is going to come.
A lot of jobs, factories, business equipment, data centers, as I said, all that stuff, that's coming. You saw some of that in the 3% GDP number that was out this week. So it's not all bad. Yeah. It's just that we could do better. Do you think Jay Powell knows? Does he know? I'm told that economists at the Fed do not agree with Jay Powell, that they're not worried about tariff inflation. I've heard that from several sources.
He wasn't worried about it until 3 months ago. He's on the record as saying it's a one-time price increase. He was not afraid of it at all. And this is what infuriates a lot of people. What happened to him?
He's taking his eye off the ball because he's rebuilding that Taj Mahal they got going there. And he's losing $100 million a year on a mismatch asset and liability. By the way, this is Senator Ted Cruz. The Fed is spending $168 billion. $168 billion per year paying banks reserve
Not to lend
at
money.
4.5%. Almost half of it's paying foreign banks.
Yeah.
They're not even American
Yeah.
banks.
Yeah, if you're in the
Much
system,
less.
they're the same ones who got bailed out. They're
That's
all in
not
that
cool.
Fed system.
That is not a cool policy.
So, but we're going to be okay even if we have to wait till May.
Until May. We're going to be, look, the Fed will jumbo rate cut in September,
Okay.
but they should have done it. They should have done it yesterday,
I
for
got you.
heaven's sakes.
Larry Kudlow, of course, you watch him every day. He's #1 in the business world.
Left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stared by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs and voices never shared. No one dared disturb the sound of silence. For said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows.